Okay, so unfortunately, Molly Martin from the Xerces Society isn't able to join us today. So Michele White who is with the National Recreation and the National Recreation and Park Association, actually the National Recreation and Parks Association, is going to talk about her program, which is the Pollinators Campaign, which is focused on raising public awareness of the pollinator crisis by encouraging local action and positioning parks as leaders and advancing pollinator health and sustainable habitat. And Molly and Michele work together, and so she can tell you a little bit about the Xerces program, but we also have Xerces Society's publications, vast library, and their videos that are webinars in the resources section of your program. And the B-City program of Molly's is also linked by her picture in the program. So why don't you go ahead, Michele, and share your screen, and we'll hear about your program now.
Thank you, Rella, for that introduction. Thank you all for having me. Like she mentioned, I work for the National Recreation and Park Association. We are a national nonprofit that advocates and educates park rec professionals across the country. And our focus really is local municipal government, nonprofits, and park rec agencies that focus on open space and land. So very much in the focus of cities and communities. While we've heard prior from our panelists around agricultural and larger land bases, we really actually all interconnect and feed in. So a lot of things that I'm going to be talking about have already sort of been hinted to or addressed in a different fashion. So I really look forward to it. And as a personal note, I have a personal connection to all of this. I also own farmland and raise bees myself. So a lot of these things do hit home on that level, except for I'm in Virginia, so my landscape is a little bit different. But I will go ahead and start my presentation off, and I look forward to talking with you later. So we know that cities play an important role in supporting pollinators as refuges for biodiversity, as well as green corridors to connect our rural and agricultural lands, as we've heard. Parks and open spaces play a vital role in advancing pollinator habitat and conservation efforts as stewards of much of the largest open space in cities and communities. This might be more focused to cities, so bear with me. And we know from research that the creation of pollinator habitat is often championed at the city level by natural resource management staff, but the long-term health and support of these spaces take a diverse team of park staff, city leaders, community groups, and advocates. This is just a summary of one of the research statements that really show that urban landscapes do have an abundance of biodiversity, but need to focus more on the conservation efforts and long-term sustainability of those properties. So with that in mind, the first step is ensuring that the diverse benefits of native habitat is understood. They aren't just spaces to support bees, butterflies, and biodiversity in general, but they are solutions to pressing issues cities are facing, including climate change, health and wellness, and environmental injustice. We know that these spaces build resiliency for communities, specifically in green infrastructure solutions that improve air quality and water quality, reduce flooding and heat island effects, and also reliance on water while building ecological resiliency. We've also heard about carbon sequestration, which is another added one. These are just to name a few of the benefits in the resiliency sector. But these spaces also provide a multitude of health benefits for the community. They connect people with nature and the outdoors that improve our mental and physical well-being. There are so many stats to support this, but did you know that spending 5 minutes outside in natural spaces improves your health? And at the deeper level, they can help protect and support microbial diversity, which helps our immune systems by exposing us to a diverse range of microbes that allows our bodies to mount an effective defense response against pathogens. And right now, I think we can all understand how important this is. So biodiversity is so important to our health, our communities, even suburban, urban, agricultural, whatever that looks like. Pollinator habitat also requires less chemicals like pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, which limits our exposure to potential harmful substances that we've heard before. These spaces are also equitable and can be incorporated anywhere, from very formal design gardens to vacant lots. It can be incorporated into any space, great or small. And the fact that it's cost effective is a great point as well. The key is ensuring the design that you select is supported by the community it will serve. And that's very important when you go about your work. Another one that we've heard hinted on before is that cities and municipalities, especially now, are dealing with declining budgets. Demonstrating the cost savings of native habitat is an important message to leadership, planners, and maintenance teams at the city level. The EPA cites and estimates that over a 20-year period, the cumulative cost of maintaining a prairie or wetland totals $3,000 per acre, versus $20,000 per acre for non-native turf grasses. This speaks to the native landscapes once established are resilient, require less water and chemicals and less maintenance. This cuts down on budgets for both materials and labor. I've included information from the Tall Grass Prairie Center on the cost to convert 1 acre of turf to prairie. Having data like this to present to upfront costs and long-term savings of native habitat is beneficial to secure support from leadership at the city level. Well, we need to set the stage for park agencies and city leaders. We also need to ensure that our community is supportive. With an estimated 83% of the US population living in cities or towns, it is imperative we make our case to the public. Community advocacy, sorry, I thought I saw a question. Community advocacy ensures continued funding and support for pollinator habitat and education at the city level. NRB conducted a national survey on the public's perception of the importance of pollinators and their habitat. The results showed the public is overwhelmingly supportive of establishing habitat, but don't understand what they can do to help. This is really important for us to understand and use as we're doing our work in the future. So, knowing that the public is supportive but needs help in advocating and taking personal action is key to making sure our next steps hit home. And I really focus on 3 areas. First is building cross-sector non-traditional partnerships. And this is a key to successful pollinator programs. Finding those groups in your agency, local government, outside organizations, or advocates to help you do this work is vital. Many other city departments have resources that could help you, whether it's the city planners, the transportation, stormwater, a plethora of the departments that you work with or may not at this point. They most likely have mutual goals to advance resiliency at the community level. And they really haven't considered pollinator habitat or native habitat as a solution, which is actually really important for them to consider. But also going outside of your organization, looking for advocates, outside nonprofits, community groups. These people are just as important to have at the table, especially even researchers and academia. Have them at the table too, because they can bring different skill sets and resources that you don't have that can help you advocate, fund, and implement programs. One example of starting this process internally, at least at the park agency level, is the work that we did with the Columbus Parks and Rec Department in Columbus, Ohio. When we started working with them, they didn't have a formal pollinator program or educational outreach in native habitat. Through our work with them in restoring their largest urban prairie, they developed a parkland conservation team that included leadership from the city level, natural resource managers, education and volunteer managers, and their maintenance team members. This team focuses on 4 key areas: invasive species removal, increased tree canopy and pollinator habitat, reduce debris, erosion, and harmful aquatic organisms within their agency's water system, and focusing on their conservation pillar at the agency level. With the establishment of this cross-departmental team, their plan is to increase pollinator habitat across the city through both prairie restoration and new gardens, using collected seed from their established sites, which we help them do. They have 3 more habitats coming online in the next 6 months, and both their community and their park and their city agency are really excited about this work. Second, as the largest open space owners in many cities, we need to be the champions of native habitat and best practice by showcasing how it can be incorporated throughout the community and highlighting the plethora of benefits. The parks and others can focus on the initial steps to help them lead by example. First, review your agency's stance on incorporating native plants and see how you can plant more native everywhere. Make sure you're planting a variety that bloom from spring to fall, and please plant milkweed. The more the merrier, as we've heard everyone say here. Secondly, allow some natural sites to stay wild for nesting areas for pollinators. Parks take pride in the spaces looking perfect, but educate your agency and your community of the value of natural spaces left alone, as it's important for the life cycle of many pollinators and supports broader biodiversity. Now, we've seen people look at this overall, but really might be easier for you to do this closer to tree lines or forested areas, or in tucked away areas where parks maybe have less use. Also consider wetlands to leave, leave them wet, don't drain them out, because different pollinators require different things. Lightning bugs, for instance, require this. I'm not quite sure if the biodiversity of lightning bugs in Colorado, but it's one of my favorites, so I always bring it up. And as we also heard, avoid using insecticides and herbicides that may kill pollinators and the plants they rely on. Try integrated pest management or organic land management approaches. Also try different maintenance techniques like solarization, heat-based weeding devices, prescribed burning goats. Yes, I said goats in urban settings, and other natural ways to keep native habitat healthy. And also, if you're looking for best practices, Xerxes is a great place to start. They've got great resources and toolkits, even regional-based information. And also their Bee City initiative is something where if you have advocates and community leadership that want to get involved, it's a great platform. And they also give you information on integrated pest management from the community level. To ensure we're building our next generation of environmental stewards, education and community engagement is crucial. This can be done in many ways, and there are so many resources out there. NRPA has the Parks for Pollinator BioBlitz, a yearly community science campaign engaged people into finding what biodiversity is in their parks. This not only educates the public on the pollinators and the species in their community, but it creates a baseline data set to allow park agencies to better manage their open space to support biodiversity and ecological balance. We provide toolkits that walk you through everything that you need, from how to set up your campaign on iNaturalist, how to host a BioBlitz virtually or in person, and how to promote to your community. We welcome parks and organizations alike to join us. By building awareness of the plight of the pollinators and the importance of biodiversity through engaging activities, you can foster appreciation for your work and ensure that you garner further support in the future. And we know that both advocacy and volunteer labor is vital to parks' native habitat movement. This goes around general support, engagement, assistance, and maintenance. It runs the gamut. But through our research, we have found that population skews older, less diverse, and wealthier in most communities as a whole. For future success, we need to make sure we're diversifying and broadening the groups that we bring into the fold into our pollinator work and initiatives. NRPA will be diving into this in the future, and we look forward to sharing more with you. But with all this information, where do we start and how do we build our plans? Taking the first step is key, and this can be anything from public engagement to building a habitat to starting, internal groups. Whatever that is for you and makes sense, that is great. But these are great first steps if you look at it from the top line approach. I've talked about the first 4 steps already, but if you're already here, you've probably already started this work. So I ask you, consider developing a pollinator protection strategy for your agency, or better yet, your city. These plans support a broader, holistic look at how you protect habitat and pollinators. It includes city and agency policies that support or hinder native habitat, reviewing those and making sure that you're doing the best things at a policy level. It looks at funding strategies to make sure that your municipality can fund these initiatives. It talks about habitat placement plans. It talks about maintenance and education, key partners and industries to pull to the table. Sometimes developers can be included in this because the fact is they have resiliency and sustainability plans that they need to implement on the ground and can help in those initiatives. Also, advocacy efforts. We always need to be talking about how we can build support for these initiatives. Several cities have already done these plans, and you can model them after. Check out our webinar. It's called Pollinator Protection and Outreach Strategies, Multiple Methods to Make a Difference. It's on our website. It highlights Toronto, Lynn County, St. Louis, Missouri, and Dallas, Texas efforts to create strategies and plans to protect pollinator habitat. These plans can create a roadmap for you and your community to help build more native habitat. Regardless of where you are in your journey, what you do will make a difference in championing pollinator awareness and habitat in your community, one step at a time. I thank you for your time today.